Great. Thank you everyone for joining. We are going to get started in just a moment. We're going to let people enter from the waiting room and let them get connected. But at this point, we are going to ask everyone in the chat to introduce yourself. Let us know where you're calling from or where you're calling in from and joining us from today. Let us know your organization and your role. We're really excited to hear who is here today and how we can also respond to your questions based on the role that you serve within education. So we will get started in about 30 seconds or so. Great. And Galen, if you want to make sure that the attendees can access the chat for everyone, we can see who is here. And we'll get started in about 30 seconds. Again, if you're just joining us, we'd love to hear where you're joining us from, your organization, and your role. And we are going to get started in about 30 seconds, or exactly 5 after. Looks like we have some educators, some in the classroom teachers, which we love. We have some district personnel. Looks like we have some education technology providers joining us, which is great. It's so important that we have everyone here to have this conversation, and we are going to get started. So welcome everyone. First off, happy National AI Literacy Day. We're so excited that you're joining us. And as a part of this celebration, we're presenting a synchronous professional development series on AI literacy. You can visit ailiteracyday.org for the full schedule throughout the day, plus free curriculum resources and professional development. And by joining a session, you'll have the chance to deep dive into the future of technology alongside leading experts. But today, our experts, which you're going to meet in just a moment, they are going to be discussing the role of interoperability in supporting effective AI adoption, key data infrastructure components needed for AI readiness, best practices for integrating AI tools without compromising data security, privacy, or efficiency, and real-world examples of school systems preparing for AI through robust interoperability frameworks. If you have questions as we continue to talk, please put them into the chat. This is a panel. There's going to be an opportunity for you to ask questions, but we are very excited to have you today. And you'll see here in a moment, you're going to learn who is on this panel and learn from our amazing panelists. We're going to talk a little bit more about data interoperability and define that for everyone. We'll also talk a little bit about how interoperability is essential for AI and thinking through AI in the classroom and thinking through what your data infrastructure needs to be in order to implement AI in your district. We'll have a panel Q&A, and then we will give you some next steps. And move forward the slides. In a moment, the slide should change. There you go. But I'll introduce myself quickly. My name is Chloe Sanducci. I'm the project director for Project Unicorn, which I will tell you a little bit more about Project Unicorn in just a moment. But Project Unicorn is an initiative under Innovate EDU that focuses on data interoperability. But today we have some amazing panelists joining us, and I want them all to introduce themselves. So starting with Tara, would love for you to introduce yourself and tell us a little bit more about the work that you are doing with AI in education.
Thank you, Chloe. And hello, everyone. It's so fantastic to be with you here on National AI Literacy Day. My name is Tara Carosa, and I'm the Director of Digital Learning and Innovation for New York City Public Schools. And the division that I live in is academics and instruction. And so our focus really is thinking about how AI can strengthen, support, and accelerate our large initiatives around reading, literacy, and math. We refer to those as NYC Reads and NYC Solves. And right now, the strategic approach we're taking is one focused on expanding the use of our high quality instructional materials, so the curriculum, building out our practices and tools that support all learners, because we are the nation's largest public school system and have quite a diverse test bed of students, which is great for artificial intelligence and also very challenging. And so we're really looking to use our community and our culture in New York City to test out the best practices for for safe and responsible use of artificial intelligence in schools. And then last but not least, we're really looking to sustain and deepen the work around expanding our curriculum through developing knowledge, building out our systems and structures, which interoperability becomes a critical aspect of. That will really sustain the use of those high quality instructional materials and move students along the proficiency continuum for math and literacy. And so that's a little bit about me. I'll pass it over to the next person up, which is Calypso. So Calypso, I'm going to pass it to you.
Tara, I'm Calypso Gilstrap. I am the Associate Director of the Office of Educational Technology and Classroom Innovation at the Virginia Department of Education. I was a drama teacher and then a school librarian for 25 years before I came over to the state. And where my work is really ingrained in AI is in the instructional part of AI. I am responsible for the Virginia Educational Technology Plan, which mirrors the National Educational Technology Plan. I highly recommend you look up our plan. It's very good if you're looking for an educational technology plan example. And so basically we think, got to create a plan. Then we need to set guidance, which Virginia had, I think there was the fifth state or Commonwealth coming out with our guidance. So I recommend if you're looking for guidance at the state level, it's a really good plan or guidance. So we do a plan, we set guidance, and now we are working on integrating media literacy, digital citizenship, and artificial intelligence into every set of our standards. We have already integrated it into our English language standards and our computer science standards specifically. We start in third grade with machine learning after they've learned about patterns and algorithms in kindergarten through second grade. And our intention is that by sixth grade, they understand what artificial intelligence is. And by the time they're freshmen in high school, they not only are using AI in a safe, ethical way, but also they know how to program AI, create their own agent bots and those type things. So that is about setting standards, and it has to be across the curriculum. And then my last part of this step of my job is to make sure that we're leveraging all of the resources of the state to create one effort towards AI. So we want to reduce that duplication of effort. We don't want 131 school divisions creating instructional materials about AI. Instead, the state is trying to get those instructional materials to work with the high quality instructional materials and the curriculums and those type things. So that's really my responsibility and my lens in the world. And it's really great to meet you. And up next is our advisor, I'm going to say it wrong, Sharira. Is that right? It's close.
Hello, everyone. I'm Shahryar Kazi. I represent Council of Great City Schools. I have been working with the council for the last 5 years on various interoperability and artificial intelligence initiatives. I was part of the team that developed that Gen AI checklist in collaboration with COSIN, and then developed a maturity assessment tool that we currently use doing workshops for various school districts. The council represents the top 78 urban school districts in the country, representing about 7.2 million K-12 students. And I'm happy to be here and sharing part of some of my experiences. Jeff Kilner, please.
Hi, thanks, Shahryar and Tara and Calypso. I am Jeff Kilner. I am an instructional technology specialist serving teachers and students in the Indian River School District. We're located in southern Delaware. So I'm on this panel with all these people representing, like, Council of Great City Schools and state level DOE and the largest, DOE in the entire nation in the public school system in New York City. So my voice is kind of more towards, like, how as a representative of kind of a rural district, how we are looking at artificial intelligence. And in my role specifically as an instructional tech specialist or coach, how am I navigating and learning from these larger organizations, as well as trying to influence up into like the Delaware Department of Ed. Like I helped craft our generative AI guidance, which was released just after Virginia and some others, trying to think about like, currently I'm serving on our state's generative AI subcommittee, helping to develop multiple guidance documents, helping build out professional development. So like going down a level, down into our classrooms where things are actually happening. So for me, it's a matter of the work that I'm doing in supporting AI in public education is really trying to be as big a sponge as I can, and then holding whatever needs held and trying to make sure like I'm being intentional in when to deploy and when to support and what to do. So to me, this idea of interoperability presents a really, really fascinating way to kind of look at that as well. So thanks everybody, and we'll give it back to Chloe to move forward.
Hi, everyone. I hope that my internet works. And if not, I'm going to have some of the presenters jump in to help out a bit with the slides. But Jeff and Shara, if you could just give me a thumbs up if you all hear me all right now. Perfect. Okay, great. And my co-presenters, if anything stops, just pick up where I leave off. But real quick, I'm going to keep my camera off to help the internet. I want to let everyone know what Project Unicorn is. For those of you who do not know what Project Unicorn is, it is a coalition that is made up of the organizations that you see here in front of you. It's a coalition under Innovate EDU that focuses on data interoperability in K-12 education. Through this coalition, we are aiming to create a community of innovators who are making that broader case for secure interoperability by determining shared priorities and working in partnership with school systems as well as vendors to really understand the importance of and benefits of creating that demand side push for interoperability. We're going to give you a few resources at the end of this to get involved with Project Unicorn. We would love to have you in our community if you are not already. But we keep saying this word interoperability, and this is really what we're going to ground ourselves in today as we talk about how this is important for AI. So let's define what that is. So interoperability is the seamless, secure, and controlled exchange of data between applications. And interoperability can really transform that teaching and learning by giving teachers, educators, district administrators, SEAs, just everyone that makes up the entire education system, the information that they need so that students can succeed, and so teachers and educators can enable innovation in classroom practices. And let's think a little bit about what this looks like in the real world. So data interoperability, it really plays a significant, but sometimes unnoticed role in our daily lives. A really great example is thinking about Bluetooth and earbuds with various devices. So you can connect with Bluetooth, your earbuds to your computer, your phone, tablets, and that is because Bluetooth is a widely accepted and adopted interoperability standard. Another great analogy we love to use is thinking of the lack of interoperability standards. So in this analogy, we have to consider Legos, we think about Lincoln Logs and Tinker Toys. So when you think about that and think of how that can represent different types of data storage, like an SIS, an LMS, and another ed tech tool, all three of these toys, they work really well within their own ecosystem. You can connect Legos with Legos and Tinker Toys with Tinker Toys, but you will run into trouble if you try to mix Legos with Lincoln Logs or Tinker Toys to build a house, right? You can maybe do some type of custom build with the connectors. Maybe you need a 3D printer to find that custom build, but it would be really complicated, expensive, inconvenient, and just really require a lot of skill and also be prone to error and fail, and it wouldn't be easily scalable. So this is a great analogy when we think about data in education. So, and all of our education data, our ed tech tools, again, the SIS and the LMS, even if the data looks the same in the user interface of an application, The manner in which it's stored on the back end can vary tremendously, and custom-built connectors, they might be undocumented, they might be proprietary and really risky to deploy. So it makes it difficult to combine data to make it interoperable, to present it in a meaningful, easily understandable way. So we're really talking about getting data out of silos. So now we're going to think of how this relates to AI. So any form of AI, it's built off an enormous amount of data. And that is exactly what we're talking about here is data. So before we even consider using AI in the classroom, we really have to think about these foundational practices because we have to be mindful always that data is secure and private and that privacy is always maintained. So there's a really great resource. I will put it into the chat that talks a little bit more about an ecosystem and how privacy, security, and interoperability, they all matter within this ecosystem. I'm going to throw that into the chat right now. And just a couple things before we go a little bit further into the AI. So when we're thinking about best practices and these interoperability standards and how all of these things play off of each other in an ecosystem, we have to think of the clarity, the ownership, the security, transparency, and compliance. And again, the resource I just put into the chat will dive a little bit deeper into that.
So I'm going to
shifting,
right, Chloe.
Tara, go for it.
Jump in.
Go for it, Tara.
I'm going to jump in. So building your foundation and your guiding principles, I'm going to start by talking about the EdSafe AI framework, which there's numerous K-12 AI policy labs that are going on across the country. And in New York City, we piloted the first one and sort of launched it. And there's 4 core areas around the SAFE framework, which are very easy to remember. Safety, accountability, fairness and transparency, and then efficacy and equity. And so we'll dive into what those mean a little bit more as we go through the guiding principles. They'll add some context to it. But if you click on that link after this, you can really see what we mean by safety. There's safety in so many contexts with so many stakeholders. So you really have to think about at every level, what does safety mean with artificial intelligence? Accountability shifts to what are the roles and responsibilities of all of those stakeholders to ensure that we are taking a safe approach to responsible innovation with artificial intelligence. And then fairness and transparency. That's where we can dive a little deeper into the data and into the interoperability. What actually is happening on the back end of these systems? Are they using data that reflects the students and the communities that we serve? How is that data being used? Is it being used in a fair and ethical way? And then shifting down to efficacy and equity, how are we really providing training and professional learning and resources so that we can measure the effective use and how we're doing it in New York City is really in a tiered way from foundational up to higher rigor. How do we really measure each stage of that to ensure efficacy in the application of artificial intelligence within education systems? And so to do all those things at the same time, you really need to build a digital ecosystem. And that takes so many stakeholders to do. And so where do you start? How do you even put all of these pieces together? And so one place that we've started in a lot of different, whether you're at the state level or the school level, or even higher ed, we have guiding principles. And so we've collaborated together here, and I'm going to pass it over to Calypso and Jeff just to talk about some guiding principles that we've come up for this session. But really, the guiding principles can be taken from the framework and created to fit the context of your community. So Calypso, I'm going to pass it to you, I think.
Thanks, Tara. So one of the things we talked about when we were planning this panel is, what are some assumptions that we should have going into it? And I think the most important one that we all came to, no matter what, whether you're talking about cybersecurity, data privacy, interoperability, standards use, HQIM, is guess who's in the middle of all of those things is humans. And so no matter what the answers are on our panel, is humans can be the one that creates awesome stuff in the classroom or complete disasters outside of the classroom. So humans need to be in the loop at all times, not just in AI, but in all things. And so as we talk about interoperability, humans aren't always interoperable either. So hopefully we can get through this panel and help you have some realistic things. Some other things that we have specifically put into the Virginia guidance policy with ours is making sure that we're augmenting and not replacing. Back in the day when we had the SAMR model, we're not just, substituting, we're actually changing the way we teach because of AI. Also making sure that we always 100% don't trust any instructional technology. I think we are all learning that AI is not trustworthy yet, and it is still a very risky thing to put into a classroom, but there are appropriate times. And then when it first came out, cheating, and that hopefully with using digital literacy and our digital citizenship, media literacy kind of work, that we are able to prioritize integrity, that we're not saying don't use AI, we're saying this is when we use AI with integrity. I'll let Jeff take over now as a classroom teacher to give us some more depth to that.
Yeah, thanks, Calypso. Yeah, the classroom educators I work with, a lot of times they see AI, and again, because we ask teachers to do so much, they see AI as an opportunity to be more efficient and more effective. And like Calypso mentioned the SAMR model, like that is great if and when you're using it, meeting all these criteria. But like, for me to step back just a half a step and like think of it, like when we thought about interoperability, we used the metaphor of like Legos versus Lincoln Logs versus Tinker Toys. Well, for me, when I think about AI in education, it's like a disruptive technology. And so many people think of it as like a calculator in math. But to me, it's a lot bigger than that. It's almost like I read a great article, and I can drop it in the chat. And it talked about the first 30 years of automobiles in the city of Detroit. And essentially what the first 30 years was a mess. You had this system of a city that was in place with streetcars and horse and carriage and all of these different pieces in place that allowed that system to function. And then this disruptive technology of an automobile was dropped in there. So to me, I think of like our schools and our classrooms as like a city, and AI is just that disruption that like gets dropped in. And like when Detroit was trying to think about how they were going to keep people safe, they had to have councils. And again, like this wasn't isolated in Detroit, right? This was happening in New York. So like all of these different areas had this same disruptive technology present itself, and everybody ended up having very similar solutions and ideas, but they sequenced their efforts differently. And that's kind of how, like in Delaware, like all of us in this panel, we're all talking about similar moves and similar ideas and similar work that we're doing, all in the name of making sure that we're keeping our kids safe, that we're shielding our teachers from liability, right? And all of that kind of centers and hinges on this idea of interoperability, right? Like when you drive a car in any US city, there's standardization there. And that's kind of the importance for this idea of interoperability. So like what we're doing in Delaware is, those EdSafe AI Alliance, the SAFE framework, right? Those 4 aspects are represented in our guidance as 4 key policy areas. Calypso had mentioned the work that they're doing in Virginia, right? All of these things are analogs and parallel to each other, but we've got to make sure that like it is as clear and consistent and that similar message to our educators as to why we're recommending a certain tool or a certain practice or a certain strategy, so that they understand. Like my students, when I was in the classroom, they called me Buzz Kilner because like I would always like be pretty harsh with them and hold them to high standards. And like, yeah, I am kind of Buzz Kilner in this role. If someone hits my inbox and says, can we get this AI tool? I'm going to kick the tires. I'm going to check it and make sure like it's going to be safe, it's going to be ethical, and it's going to transform practice. Those are my 3 internal litmus tests that, I look at when I think about AI. So.
Awesome.
Okay, we are going to transition into the first question, which I think, Jeff, you were getting into a bit. I'm going to start with you, Jeff. So the first question is, What are the most pressing issues at each level? We'll start with the classroom, and how can we create cohesive policies and strategies to address them? I'm going to ask each of you to respond to this one. So starting with Jeff, anything to add? You were getting into that a little.
I guess I'm going to steal Calypso's previous answer, which is keep humans in the loop, right? Like, I'm an instructional tech specialist. I serve a district of 1,000-ish educators and just under 12,000 students. And so like we're kind of a medium-sized district, but like I had a teacher email me and say, what are we going to do about AI? And I had nothing for him. So I literally just branched out in my networks. And like that's why I'm on this webinar now, is through that branching out. So like the most pressing issue at each level, I think from the classroom perspective would be like, don't be afraid to reach out. Everybody's working on these same problems. Everybody has these same questions. And first, like, don't jump chain of command, but like if you're not finding what you need at the district level, then maybe reach out to peers in your state. And then from there, so like just understand that like when you reach out and if you don't see something or get something, it's not that people aren't working on it or thinking about it. It's just that they might be prioritizing other aspects of it. They might be thinking about the back end and interoperability and not so much about practical classroom operations. And that's okay. So like there are people probably in this webinar who are doing significant, impactful work every single day towards this that we just don't know.
Thanks, Jeff. And zooming out, so we're going to keep zooming out now from a district perspective. We're going to have, I'll start with Shahryar. I know there's a couple of resources that you want to share regarding strategies that could be used, and then also Tara. So what are the most pressing issues and address them?
Sure, I shared a couple of links. I can repost them again. But I think at the district level, I think what needs to be considered that this isn't just an IT matter. This is a district-wide issue. So one of the first steps that most of all of the maturity assessment tools and studies recommend is that forming that cross-functional committee that represents not only academics, data and accountability, IT, but also the operational side of the shop, and also legal and procurement. It's really important to bring everyone in, do a kind of a level set, and raise that awareness about the impact that AI has on the organization, and then come up with doing that assessment of where really you are. If you look at where the district is, if you look at like the assessment tool that COSIN and the council jointly put together, we have 7 domains. Leadership, which very emphasizes again on that cross-functional committee and overall management of AI initiatives and AI policies. Operations, which is procurement, very focused on procurement. You really need to control what's coming into your district and how it's utilized and under what type of policies. And then data readiness, the technical side of it, the security piece we talked a little bit about, legal and risk components, and then the instructional impact that we're talked a lot about, and it's one of the most important elements. So I think I really encourage you to look at, not if you want to just start with the checklist and review that. One of the works that I've worked with the LA County Office of Education, one of the things we have done is put that committee together, cross-functional committee together, representing various divisions, departments in the organization, and each department has taken ownership and lead on one of these domains, we call them in the tool, and they're going through and then presenting to the committee. And that's the first step to start that awareness and understanding, kind of sync up on language and concepts, and then from there develop a roadmap on how you want to improve and increase that maturity level.
Yeah, I mean, I couldn't agree more with what Shar is saying, because in New York City, we didn't actually go and use the full maturity model, even though that's my hope and wish, which I know we're going to do one day soon, because it's so robust when you have a look at it. But what I'd say too, from that perspective, like say you're a higher ed professor right now on, or a K-12 educator, you know, no matter what role, just go for your own learning, going through that maturity model and looking at all of the components and familiarizing with them allows you to upskill yourself and also build empathy in what are all those other stakeholders, what are they feeling when they're reading something like this? Because it can't be in a siloed way. Like this is not successful at all because of the accelerated pace of AI by doing this alone. And also our legacy thinking that like IT is its own shop and it sits in IT and decisions are made there. Now, that said, I also think we already have within education a lot of things that don't necessarily have the AI in front of them, but you can use and leverage. For example, what are your existing policies in your organization? Go to those policies and familiarize with them, because a lot of like our data privacy and security policies that we all need to be accountable to. I think AI has made everyone more aware that we are accountable to those that already exist. So I would say look at your existing policies. And then from a pedagogical standpoint, I know Calypso referenced SAMR earlier. In New York City, we've trained almost 10,000 staff since 2022 in AI and digital literacy. We use SAMR constantly and still refer back to it, refer back to Bloom's taxonomy and say, you already know these practices. How do we use that conceptual model and integrate AI into it so it doesn't feel like it's foreign or unfamiliar? And so really just using the strengths that you have already within your role and your ecosystem, I think are a way to jump off in creating more cohesive policies and strategies across whatever organization you have.
Wow, you guys are doing some awesome work. I'm excited to hear about this. So I'm gonna have to come visit you guys. I'm just a train right away. So at the state level, I think we're kind of struggling with that same thing of, so in Virginia, we're the first state that have public education and we have 400 years of laws. We call it the Code of Virginia in Virginia. And so we basically have a really great classic truck with an antique license plate on it. And it goes down the road and we're doing great work. And somebody came in and decided we're going to put a Formula One engine in that dude. And we're like, wait a second, you can't just plop that in there. And so we're really having to comb through and talk about what is new, what do we need that's new, and what needs to be adapted. And so like what Tara just said, we've had an acceptable use policy requirement since 1998. We've had an educational technology plan since 1996. We've had digital learning standards since 2005. We don't need new policies and new guidance and new strategies and all this stuff. We need to adapt the emerging technology things we were already doing for this new AI. But what I do think is different is everyone is learning it at the same time. So we need to do better with all of our stakeholders learning about AI at the same time. So with the exception of maybe higher education, people who've been studying machine learning for 50 years, our parents don't know what AI is. Our teachers don't know what AI is. Our principals don't know what AI is. Our students probably know more about AI than all of us. But that's kind of maybe where this is a new space, is thinking about how do we train the entire Commonwealth of Virginia with everybody else? And then also, how do we incorporate that with computer science? Because that is also something that people always like, they don't know what the internet is and how that works. And now we need to really up that. And so we are really working hard. We have had computer science standards for 7 years. We just went through a full revision of those computer science standards. We also just passed a law that now media literacy and digital citizenship has to be integrated into all of our standards. So again, we're not creating anything new, we're adapting and changing. And then the other thing that we're really doing at the Virginia state level is talking about E-rate a lot. E-rate's an old program. If you do interoperability, you probably know what E-rate is. But again, what has already been said is we're reiterating that, guess what? You get E-rate because of we follow SIPA and COPA and FERPA, and we keep kids safe first when we buy stuff. And a lot of our states have kind of been underutilizing E-rate program and the reimbursement. The last time we finished our cycle, we were only at 88% of reimbursement. And so as a state leader, I'm coming in and being like, we are going to get our 100% this time because we need to make sure that our kids have the most broadband access they can. AI is going to take up a lot of that broadband access. We need to make sure our hubs and our hotspots and all those things are at the top level so that we can be the fastest, so that students, teachers, families are all using the capabilities that we can at the top level. So.
Awesome, Calypso. And I'm going to jump in here because Chloe's internet has gone out, and that's okay. We're educators, we adapt. We're gonna we have about 7 more minutes, so we're gonna jump to this next question on interoperability. And any questions that you have, keep them coming in the chat. So we're gonna just jump to the next one. I'm gonna jump to it. Let me go back one, and this will be our last question for this session. But and I'm gonna start with Shariar. Why is interoperability a critical first step before implementing AI in K-12 education? So if you could take us through just like the technical perspectives, and then we'll all kind of comment beyond that.
Yeah, I think it's just getting a clear view of all the data that the district owns and utilizes, and where they are, and be able to monitor and be able to evaluate it. And whether you're using analytics or you're using integration between systems, it's really important to adopt some form of a standard so that you can be able to have the information, be able to collect the information, and also monitor the usage of the information. Just kind of relates back to the first step towards developing your data strategy and your data governance. You really want to make sure that you have clear access to the data. The biggest challenge here is that a lot of the systems are old, they're not very well documented, and also not all of them are managed under the IT organization. So there are a lot of risks associated with these systems, and I think it's important to have that visibility over what data is stored and how it's utilized, and interoperability really assists in that.
That's awesome. I'm going to jump to you, Calypso, and then me and Jeff can chime in to finish it out.
So in Virginia, we worked with VAS, our Superintendents Association, and also ALP Advanced Learning Partnerships to create 16 cohorts of cabinet level members of school divisions to go through 75 of our schools went through a workshop. And what was my favorite part of this is kind of a little, qualitative story about the success of the program is we were showing how you could do live translation with the highest level of ChatGPT, if you pay for the membership. And Adam was speaking in English, and we had a principal who spoke Spanish, and they were talking using the ChatGPT. And the superintendent was like, I want this. What do I need to do to buy this? And the procurement director's like, and the IT director's like, and she's like, I want this for every leader in our school division right now. And I saw that like crank, 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 crank of the procurement person and the IT person going, it doesn't work that. And so I thought the critical first step is to get the people at the table, get all the people. You have to have school nutrition there. You got to have the IT person. You got to have the instructional person. So you can't just have a superintendent say, we're going to do this. Because again, it's interoperability. It has to make sure that, maybe ChatGPT isn't the best AI for your school division. Maybe because you're already a school division, Gemini is, but Gemini might not meet the safety standards that you're looking for. Also, who are we giving this to? Who's going to be at the table? So the critical first step is to strategically plan, and then making sure you have that standard set, have the readiness guide set before you go purchasing things. Of course, piloting is a great part of innovation. I'm not saying don't go out there and try and be a little risky. I would just say first step though is, and then why are we doing this? That's a really important part of strategic planning is some of our school divisions are really small. They have one elementary, middle, high school, and they don't have broadband access at their homes yet. So AI is probably not ready for their community. And so we shouldn't just say, this is new and fancy and fun. Let's get it in our school division because we might not be ready for that implementation yet.
Yeah, I think I think it's a good point. I think our focus also has, and I'll be quick and then pass it to Jeff, and Chloe, I think, is back to finish it out. I think the hyper focus has been on AI empowered tools, but we have our core curriculum tools. We have, math, we have our assessment tools, periodic screeners, all different types of tools. So when you think of measurements of learning, and Shariar started talking about this, how do they all connect to each other? And just like we have learning standards, there's technical standards and certifications for tools that you can actually you can commit to as a school system, as a state level system. So there's like One Ed Tech, and we'll put this in the chat after. There's ISTE certifications for certain tools. And so what you really want to build is a system that is like a plug and play system. So when you buy a tool, you want to make sure you procure a tool, you want to make sure that it's connecting to the data of, let's say, your assessment tool connects to your math curriculum tool, so that eventually you can create this dashboard where you're actually looking at live data that provides educators the information to make real-time decisions and changes to instruction. Or ultimately, the place we'd all like to get is true adaptive learning, where students become agents of their own data, and they can be seeing how they're progressing through their academic careers and potentially making their own changes. Or AI comes in then and provides information from different pathways that they otherwise wouldn't know exist to pursue career and college opportunities. So I'm going to pass it to Jeff quickly. There's just not enough time to talk about this passionate topic.
No, and like I appreciate the opportunity to chat with and learn from all these amazing folks on the panel. I think the last thing, kind of like tying that back together, is empowered learners or informed learners or empowered learners, right? And the same holds true for our educators and our leaders and the people making these decisions. And like without thinking about interoperability, we're kind of like missing a major component, right? Like all of these tools are amazing. The technology is just like the first time everyone saw ChatGPT, their jaws hit the floor. And we're like almost 3 years past that point, and it just keeps getting even more and more high ceiling of potential. But without that foundation of interoperability, we cannot scale this. We cannot make sure our teachers are empowered so that our students are empowered. And that to me makes interoperability one of those foundational pillars that needs to be addressed. So thanks to Project Unicorn and Innovate EDU for making sure that message is out there.
Awesome. Oh, Chloe,
Yes,
you're there.
thank
Okay.
you so much, everybody. I'm gonna hop in.
You're there. Okay, great. Go for it.
I'm gonna hop in here. So thank you everyone for coming to this webinar. We're so excited that you are here. We will be following up with resources and slides. And if you want to connect with Project Unicorn and any other to see what we're doing, other resources, you can check out our website. So scan this QR code. And thank you so much to everyone for being here. Thank you so much to the panelists for giving us your time on this very important topic. And we will connect with you later. Thank you so much. Have a great day.
Thank you.